Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a brand new palette that I just got from Tarte, and it is the Showstopper palette, and this is just like a follow-up to the Rainforest After Dark palette that came out last summer, and I do have that as well, so I want to kind of compare it to this one too, just to show you the differences in colors and what the shadows look like. So let's go ahead and get started in reviewing this palette. So the Showstopper palette has that same snakeskin-like packaging as the Rainforest After Dark palette, but the actual packaging of the product is so much prettier. It has this like gold reflection to it, and the other one I have right here is just kind of this like plain brown. So I think this kind of reminds me of like YSL packaging or Estee Lauder packaging, and it's a lot more like summery, and I'm really happy with it. I do love that these palettes, both of them, have a really big mirror and they stand up on their own, which makes it more so of a go-to palette for me than some of my other palettes. So the sturdiness of this palette and the layout of it makes it really convenient for like traveling or doing your makeup on the go. So that's why I really like these palettes, and they're also pretty thin for everything that comes in it. So this comes with 6 eyeshadows, a bronzer, highlight, and blush, and it's the exact same layout as the Rainforest After Dark, just whole new color range. And I'm going to go ahead and start swatching some of the eyeshadows. I will kind of give you a disclaimer that the Tarte shadows in both this palette and the Rainforest After Dark are just complete hits or misses. I'm not super happy with all of them, especially the shimmery shades, but I'll just let you see for yourself as I'm swatching them. So let's go ahead and get in with the darkest shade in this palette, and this is one that I really do like, and it's called Dim the Lights, and it's really matte brown black shadow, and you can see it's super pigmented, super creamy, and really easy to blend out. It's not chalky at all. I used it today on my lower lash line and like an outer V, so I really do like this shade a lot. The shade next to it is called Rose to the Top, and this is like a whole different quality compared to this one for me. And this is like a very dark rose gold shimmery shadow, and it kind of does come off pretty pigmented, but I tried to put it like on the outer half of my lid today, and it was just not working out at all. And I even used Fix Plus on it, and it didn't work out. It just wasn't happening. So that's actually why I put on a whole lot of wing liner, just to cover up the lack of pigmentation of this shadow. And the one next to it too, called Steal the Scene, is like a very similar, but it's more taupey. And these are swatching really nicely, but I swear it was such a struggle to try to get this shade on my lid today. And I've played with this one a little bit too, and it was the same consistency. Like I would go on my lid, but then if I would blend any more transition shade, it would just like brush away. So this one is Steal the Scene, and this is more of a taupey shadow. So I just think I need to play with maybe a different primer or something. And then the one next to it is called You're a Natural, and this is very light. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but this is just like a transition shade, and I really do like this shade. And it is very, it's a very creamy shade, and it reminds me so much of my favorite transition shade of all time, which is Naked 2 by Urban Decay, and it's in the original Naked Basics palette. But this is just a little bit warmer, so I'm really liking this transition shade. It's becoming one of my go-to transition shades just in the past couple days that I've had it, and I am going to play with this a little bit more. So I'm happy about that shade. Next to it is Go for the Gold, and that's the shade on my lid today. And this was another shade that was not applying very well for me. And you can see it's not like a super standout gold. It's very subtle, which is probably why I wasn't too happy about it, because you have these darker shades, but then the lighter shades blend so much together that they're not standalone shades, and you don't have like a very strong, if you don't want to do like a smoky eye with these, you don't have like a very strong like pop shade that you could use all over your lid, which I was trying to do with this. I went in, I would try to go in with Fix Plus, and then I put like a gold base under it and then try to put it on top, and it was just, yeah, it took a while for me to try to get any pigmentation out of this, and so I'm not really a fan of it. So I don't think I'm going to play with that too much more, but I do like the last shade as well, and this is Showstopper Copper, and this is a little shimmery, but I used it more so in my crease today, and it worked really well for me. It blended. So I use this kind of like an all-over transition, and I use this one in my crease, and these looked really nicely together. So the Showstopper Copper, The You're Natural and the Dim the Lights are my favorites in this palette. And notice those are all the matte shades, and the shimmer shades are just not very pigmented, and I don't think they're going to wear too long. So I am kind of disappointed with some of these shadows, and if you were thinking about getting this palette just for the shadows, I definitely wouldn't say it's worth it, but I went into it more for the face products, which I'll swatch in a minute. I will say that I do like the colors in here a bit more than the ones in the Rainforest After Dark palette. They're just a lot more warmer and not as dark, and a lot more wearable and easy to blend for like everyday kind of looks compared to the ones in there. So I only have good things to say about the 3 face products in here, and I am wearing them all on my face today. I am such a big fan of Tarte blushes and highlighters and bronzers. So if you're a fan of like Tarte blushes and stuff, this is definitely a good investment if you're just into getting these 3 face products. The blush is a new shade, and this is called Fame, and I don't have anything like this. It's a kind of peachy, orangey shade. Just like swatched it in the most awkward place, but it's right there, and it's like this orangey shade, and it's matte, and so makes it a lot different than some of the more like corally shades that I do own already. The bronzer in here is the Park Avenue Princess bronzer, and I own 3 of these because I have this palette. It came in the other Tarte palette, and it's in another Tarte palette that I have. And I need all 3 of them because I use this bronzer at least every other day. And I think it's like one of the most underrated makeup products of all time. I never hear people talking about Park Avenue Princess. But this, I love this more than Too Faced Chocolate Soleil. I don't necessarily use it for like any intense contouring, but it is not so orange. So you could use it to contour and it will look just fine as well. But I really am obsessed with this bronzer. Like, even if I put like sometimes I'll like just wear like mascara and this bronzer, it'll look like I'm wearing foundation and concealer and stuff because it just brings so much life to my face. And the color just blends in perfectly, at least for my skin tone, and I do have like a yellow undertone. So if you're like a similar skin tone to me, this bronzer looks best on me than any of the bronzers that I own. I just don't know why people don't talk about Park Avenue Princess so much. It's an amazing bronzer. And this highlight, I'm obsessed with Tarte highlights. Like the one in the Rainforest After Dark is the one that I use almost on a daily basis. And this is called Champagne Pink. And this is a little bit more of a cool tone highlight. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's champagne, and it does have like a little bit of a pink shimmer to it, which I think was an interesting pairing with the blush in this palette because I would think that they would do more of a gold highlight, but it is a good variation. And notice that there's no like brow bone highlight color in these eyeshadows. Like the lightest shadow you have here, which is definitely not a highlight at all. So I did highlight today on my brow bone with the Champagne Pink. I have no problem using this highlight as an eyeshadow, or even the Park Avenue Princess as an eyeshadow. I think you could use this whole palette however you want, which is the beauty of having a couple of different products in one palette. The only downside to the packaging is that it comes with the little paper that just has all the names of the colors and stuff, just like the original chocolate bar palette came with it. So I'm definitely going to toss this like after I'm done filming this video because I don't really care about what the shadows are called, but I do need to make a note of what, I mean, I know this is Park Avenue Princess, but I always forget what the blushes are called. And I do think this is just a new blush for this palette, but if it wasn't and I wanted to repurchase it later, I would want to remember what it's called. So that's the only downside if you want to know what the names are. This is kind of like really inconvenient because there's definitely room on there if they wanted to put the names right on the palette. So I'm just going to quickly show you what this palette looks like compared to the Rainforest After Dark. So seeing these palettes side by side, you can see that the Rainforest After Dark has a lot of more darker shades, a lot more matte shadows, and this palette has a lot more metallic shadows, and some of them are a little bit more cool tone compared to these. I wish that the gold in this Showstopper palette was instead this gold. I wish that they were replaced because I feel like this gold would make more sense with some of these darker shades where you don't need that bright of a pop of color like I do with these lighter shades, if that makes sense. So that is the biggest downfall in the color variations of these two palettes. When I get a palette like this that has face products and eyeshadows, I want to just use this palette for all of my eye and face makeup. I don't want to go between different palettes to get a brow bone highlight, to get a different transition shade, or get a different highlight to go with that blush. It is so much easier just to use one palette that looks good all together, and I think they didn't really think through some of the combinations of colors. So overall, I think I'll just get just as much use out of this palette as I have with my Rainforest After Dark. I can't say which I like better yet because I use this palette so much in terms of just like their face products, and I'm hoping to do the same with the Showstopper palette, especially because the blush in here is just a color I don't own, and I love bolder blushes, and the blush in the Rainforest After Dark is a great everyday blush. I use it when I don't know what blush I want to use because it goes with everything. But this is a little bit more of an exciting range of blush for me. So I'm happy to get this because I think I have a lot of mauve blushes already. So if I could figure out how to get those shadows a lot more pigmented from this palette, then this would be the winner. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep using this one a little bit more. I do think it's worth it on its own just for the face products because this is definitely close to a full-size blush, even if it's not a full-size blush. And then the bronzer and the highlight don't look like they're super big, but in the other palette, I use them almost every day and have yet to hit anything close to pan on them. So these alone make the palette worth it for me, and I just think of the eyeshadows as just like a bonus since I do look forward to the face products a bit more. So if you purchased the Showstopper palette, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below, and I'll post swatches of all the colors I showed on a blog post, and I'll link that down below as well. So please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye.